friends, welcome back to Sun Cherry Farm. Today is Tuesday, May the 24th, and we're going to do my second garden tour. Here on the deck of the back of my house, I have a few different plants in pots and then also in some raised garden containers. So that's where we're going to start. This tomato plant here is a Sweeties. It's a cherry tomato and it has grown a lot. This tomato plant here is a glacier tomato. I also have carrots in there, which is supposed to be a companion plant. And both seem to be doing great. In that corner over there, I have a Sun Gold, which is also a small tomato, like the cherry tomatoes, and they're supposed to be a yellow color. Better get my coffee. And then over here, in this raised garden container, I have strawberry plants. And I have been getting a few off of them already. And there's one in this corner here that I'm saving for my daughter. There's another one beside of it also. Actually, it's for my 17-year-old daughter. The other day, I let my 15-year-old daughter pick, and while my 17-year-old wasn't here. In this container over here, I have my kale and my spinach. And it's a curly kale that I picked on Thursday morning of last week, and a friend of mine shared those with her. Both she and I made some kale chips. And this spinach it's a Bonnie spinach. I'm not really sure, it just says spinach. So, and I've been picking it and having it in salads already this year. And then in this raised container, I have romaine lettuce, the green romaine, and then I also have some Greek oregano and some sweet basil. And then in this container here, I have some green leaf lettuce. And some more. Actually, I believe this is the green romaine, and that one over there is the red romaine. It's already getting hot this morning. I have turned on my soaker hoses, so they've been running probably about 10-15 minutes now. I want to show you real quick. I have here on my deck a faucet that has 4 outlets from it that goes to different areas of my garden, and I'll show you that also. Coming off my deck down my steps, I have another tomato plant in a pot. It's doing great. It's got plenty of blooms on it. I'm going to let you know that as of right now, I have not seen any actual tomatoes. So if we find some today, it's going to be a big surprise for me. Well, not a big surprise, but it'll be the first time that I've seen them. But I've got plenty of flowers. Also on this side of the steps going up, I have a petunia. I love pink and purple petunias. As you can tell by all the pink petunias that I have hanging in my hanging baskets off my deck. I came out earlier this morning and fed and watered the animals. And just to let you know, it has not rained in, I think it's going to be 2 weeks. Today, I think it's 2 weeks today, it hasn't rained. So I got soaker hoses last week and I put them out in my garden. And the corn and green beans and zucchini all seems to be thriving. I also have this mulch that I put on my garden from a tree that I had trimmed, and it's helping to retain the water. I've got some spaghetti squash here that should be blooming at any time. And then I've got candy cane corn and peaches and cream corn here. And then I have squash here. It's either crooked neck or straight neck squash, yellow squash. And then here I have zucchini. You can see I have my first zucchini growing there. And another zucchini growing there. I'll be able to pick those soon. Zucchini grow really fast. This over here is another spaghetti squash. I'll try to get my shadow out of the way. And it already has some blooms on it. This is the first time that I've grown zucchini squash. So my daughter loves to make pasta. So we're going to try the spaghetti squash this year, see how that goes. And then the green bean is trying to stretch across the garden here. So I'm going to pull it over here and see if we can't train it to climb up the cow panels. If you watched my last video, you seen where I had told you about the squash that I planted in the middle of the corn and the green beans, and a friend of mine told me that the green beans and the corn were going to cover them up. Well, they're doing a pretty good job of covering them up right now, but they are still blooming and producing some vegetables. I have some more green beans here that I need to train to go back over to the cattle panels. Hopefully that'll help them. And this one here. That one's growing up the cattle panel just perfectly. My mom had taught me that to plant the green beans with the corn, because the green beans climb up the stalk, and you can see here that the green bean is trying to climb up that stalk. So the stalk just isn't big enough, so I just need to come in here and start the green bean up the cattle panel. So there's several in here, so I'll come back after the garden tour and start them up. Oops, I think I just pulled that one off. Okay, so I will definitely wait till I'm finished with the garden tour to do that. Here I have 2 crooked neck squash. One there and one there, and the soaker hoses seem to be providing them with the water they need. And this bed here, I know I spent a lot of time on it in my last video. It has grown. There is 5 plants of California Wonders there. They're growing. And then beside of those are Crowder peas, which have grown, but still not where they should have been. And then in this row here, I have purple bok choy, and then on the other end, green bok choy straight down. And then, if I'm not mistaken, these here are broccoli. And then these are the green pole beans that I had showed you the pictures of before. I'll try to put you another picture of those seed packets in this video also, but they are growing up perfectly on the cattle panel trellis. In this bed, I have garlic, which I'm going to try pulling at least 1 or 2 up within the next day or so to see if they are ready. And then beside of those, I have more of the pole beans that are going to grow up this side of the trellis. Just want to tell you that I noticed that the garlic bed was getting a little bit too much water. So what I have on my lines is I have a splitter so I can slow the water down to that bed. So just to give you an idea of what you could do if you have the same issue with some of your vegetables. This part of the garden is an addition for this year. I actually started building the beds last September, and I finished those this spring. Purchased some soil from a local company who has organic and garden blend, and I put this additional area just in ground. This area here has one line of tomatoes here, and there's different varieties. The reason I did that is I wanted to see which was the best producer and which one that I like the most flavor. And I'll show you the names of those in just a few moments. And I did put cages here to help hold them upright. And then in this lane, I have the red potatoes. And in this one, I have white Kennebec potatoes. And you see that the red potatoes come up better. I don't know why I had this gap in the middle here, but not really sure, so I had to figure that out. But as far as the tomatoes, here on this end, I have a money maker. And since it was down on this end, it didn't get as much sun and possibly as much water when I had the sprinklers overhead in the beginning. So it's a little bit smaller than the other ones. These last 4 plants here, I did plant myself as seedlings. And then the second one is a German Johnson. And the next one is a Glacier. I also have a Glacier up on the deck in one of the pots. And then this is another money maker. I decided to put it here since that one on the end was not growing as much. And it took off and started outgrowing it. So I do definitely think it's because that one's not getting as much sun because of my pear tree. And possibly not as much water because the sprinkler wasn't hitting it as much. And that there is the overhead sprinkler that I was using in the beginning before I put the soaker hoses down. This one here is a big beef, and I did buy these next 4 at a big box store. But that one's a big beef. This one is a celebrity. This one is an early girl. And this one is a big boy. You can see how much better the potatoes are coming up at this end. And it also may have had something to do with the pear tree shading that in more. But I'll just have to see if I can figure out the exact reason. This is the first time I've ever grown sweet potatoes, and I put these in a pot. So I'm going to see how those turn out. I'll do a video on those when I empty the pot, when it's time to harvest them. That is a cherry tree there. I think it's a Monterey cherry tree. This was the first garden bed that I built back in September. And I filled the bottom of it up with some trimmings from my yard. And then after that, I put compost in, and then I put a garden blend in on top. And if you remember in the last video, I was a little bit concerned about the ones on the right coming up, because they weren't coming up in the beginning. The ones on the left come up immediately, like within a couple of days after I planted them. I planted crowns here that I got from Gurney's. If I'm not mistaken, I got these from Gurney's. And the ones on the left are Jersey Giants. The ones on the right are Asparagus. So like I said, I was concerned in the beginning that the Asparagus was not even going to grow here, but they have eventually decided to come up. So what happens when you plant the crowns is you're not going to get anything the first 2 years. So next year when they, what'll happen is later on towards the end of the summer, early fall, I'll cut these back, and then next year they'll grow again. They'll come up, in the beginning, when they come up, they look like an asparagus. Like if you see, there, it looks like an asparagus. So then they start turning into ferns. And like I said, the first 2 years you don't harvest. And then the third year you can. This here is another cherry tree. I've got to prune it. I haven't pruned it yet. And then on the back side here, I've planted 3 cantaloupe that have not come up yet. So I may have to replant those. On the front side, I have watermelon. This is an icebox watermelon. It's an heirloom called a Sugar Baby. And it has grown tremendously. I would say at least 4 to 5-fold since my last garden tour. And these are my green onions that I have been spooning around them to get the bulbs to grow bigger. So if you can see right there, the bulbs are starting to grow bigger. I need to come back out and spoon around them again. I know it hasn't rained since then, but I guess I didn't pull away from the bulbs good enough, so I'll do that probably again one day this week. And here is a project waiting to happen. I have peat moss, potty mix, and black cow, and some perlite and vermiculite, along with some blood meal and bone meal. I watched Hollis and Nancy's channel about where they make a mixture for their pot plants that they have, and I'm going to be making a mixture and putting it into that pot, and then I'm going to transplant these 2 sweet potatoes into there. Over here I have an apple tree. And if you can see, there's an apple. The tree is basically pretty much loaded. There's another one. And 2 more. So hopefully this year I'll get to pick those and make some apple butter, which my family loves. We love some apple butter. Then over here I have some muscadines and some grapes. I have 3 different ones, and I had looked at those earlier. Yeah, they're making grapes. So this year I may make some grape jelly, and I may even try some muscadine wine. This is a peach tree that had come up volunteer more over towards my barn, my chicken coop. And I dug it up and moved it over here, and it's been doing great. I don't think that I have pruned it exactly how it needs to be pruned. Last year it had peaches on it like crazy, but they never got to the size that you could pick them and eat them. This year I saw a few. I do see one. I don't know if you can see that one right there. It's up pretty tall, so. But maybe I'll have 1 or 2. Who knows? But I do put tree fertilizing sticks around them every year. I put like 3 or 4 depending on the size of the tree. I'm going to take you up here and show you my blackberry area. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the plants to the right, but the plants to the left look like they're thriving, and they're even growing new stalks. But the ones on the right, well, let me just show you. So it looks like the ones on the right have just dried out. And I don't think, because if you look at it, it did have plenty of flowers on it. And they look really pretty, like they were going to start out. But then it looked like everything dried up. And I know that it's not that these are not getting enough water, because I had pulled some banana plants out here and that ground was very moist. But if you see, some of them are doing just fine. There and there. And it may just be that they need a little bit longer. And then you see the new stalk that's coming up. There's multiple stalks. And these are thornless blackberries. And I intentionally planted these in here. So these are not wild. If you see those there, they seem to be doing fine. And those are doing good. So not sure what's happening over on the right side, but if anyone has any ideas, if you'll just leave me a comment below, then we'll try to see if I can find a solution to the problem. And there's my tomato plants on the deck. They get the sun from the east. Hey, I want to show you something really quick. You're gonna love this. Everybody loves free food. So I showed you the blackberries that I planted that were thornless, and now I want to show you something that is awesome. Right over there last year was wild blackberries, and there's still wild blackberries in there this year, but my neighbor cut them back. Last year she let me go over there and pick the wild blackberries, and then in the fall, guess what? They propagated over to my side. So I have been making sure to cut around them with my lawnmower to make sure they don't go anywhere that I don't want them to go. But I am going to have some wild blackberries in my own garden. So I will give you an update on these if I get to pick them this year. It looks like I'm going to, because if you see that, there are blackberries on there. So maybe I will be making some blackberry jam from my own wild blackberries this year. And if you can notice, there are more stalks coming up. So I may let them migrate this way a little bit further, and maybe this area will get a little bit bigger. Also, while on the subject of free food, whoopsie. Don't you just love it when you have stuff come up voluntarily? So I have some volunteer, I think it's squash. I think it's yellow squash in my front yard. Let me show you. I noticed when I was out here last week that I have 3 plants that just decided to show up. You'll only see 2, but let me get my shadow out. There's a squash plant there, and then there's a squash plant there. So I'm gonna pull these up because I don't want them growing here in front of my flowers in the front. So I will transplant those to the back very soon. And then one other thing I wanted to show you. I have already went along the back of my deck and watered all of these petunias that I have in hanging baskets. I wanted to show you something though. So usually what I do when I'm watering is, as I'm watering, I'll just do a slow soak. And I have already done this to the other 5 hanging baskets down through there. But with this type of petunia, if you just pull off, if you just deadhead all the old blooms, then they will continue to get bushier and bushier. These are a lot bushier. I don't know if you can go back and look at some of my other videos, but you can see how they have gotten larger over the past few weeks. So I just go through, and as I'm slowly watering, I'll deadhead, and as long as I continue to water these good and pull off these deadheads, this should bloom all summer long. I just want to say thank you for joining me today for this garden tour, and to ask if you like this video to hit the thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and make sure that you share it with your friends so that maybe something that I said in this video, they will learn something from it, or maybe they can leave me a comment to teach me how to do something better. Again, thank you for joining me at Sun Cherry Farm.